Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody. I'm going to be, tonight I'll be teaching about the PSAT, which we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about everything to do with the PSAT, why the test matters, how to interpret your results, and how to use the results to motivate and prep yourself for the SAT and the ACT, depending on which one you actually go and take. Before I introduce myself, I want to thank everybody for inviting me here to come speak with you tonight. I know that you guys are very busy students and teachers. You have nothing but a busy schedule, so I'd like to thank you for actually taking a moment and realizing how important this will be to the students, to your careers, and to your education. So I'd like to thank you for that, and let's begin, shall we? I'm sure that you guys already have a lot of questions about the PSATs and the process, the test itself, the process on how to take the test, and how to get the strategies you'll need to do better on the test. And so, if you could, I'd like you all to take a couple seconds, and if you have a question while I'm going on, just write it down. At the end of this, I'll stand by after this, and we'll answer all of your questions and make sure that everybody comes away from tonight knowing everything you possibly can on how to get you ready to take the PSAT. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. So, my name's Kurt Sandig. I'm originally from Sterling Heights, Michigan, and I graduated from Stevenson High School in 1989, so probably before most of you were even born. I graduated. I couldn't tell you, really. I don't remember how I did on my first SATs. I don't recall my score. It was good enough that I got into college, so that'll tell you something. But recently, working here at Revolution Prep, I took the SATs again. It was a daunting experience, and just as daunting for a 40-year-old as it was for a 17 or 16 or 15-year-old. It's a scary experience. It's a long test, and it really reminded me of what you will be going through and how to prepare yourself for what you went through. My results for this the second SAT, I scored a 1950, so I think I did pretty well for myself. I don't want to brag too much, but 1950, that's probably better than I did when I was a kid, when I took it originally. But like I said, I took it, I did fine back in the day, and I went on to go to Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. I studied communications and theatrical arts. So being from Detroit and studying theatrical arts, there was not a lot of opportunities for me there. So I did what nobody else does. I packed up gear and came out here to California. On the map right there. Came out to California and to see where all of my favorite movies were filmed. I quickly realized that California is a lot more expensive than Michigan. So I used my communication side of my degree and started working in customer service for 20 plus years. And that leads me to here. I started working here at Revolution Prep just recently as customer service, so if you ever have an experience on either the phones or email or on chat now on revolutionprep.com, there's a small chance you might be talking to me or one of my team. So a good chance you'll be talking to one of my team. So as a Revolution Prep customer, I can tell you that prepping for these courses are only going to help. Let's go on to the next slide. So this is what we're going to be covering. What we're covering tonight is why testing matters. We're going to get you from the A to Z on why testing would even matter to you, to your future, especially for the students here. The testing timelines, we're going to go over those as well. We're going to talk about a little bit about what you're going to see when you're actually sitting down that day for the test. And then again, we're also going to, after this, you can feel free to ask any questions you like, and I'll be happy to answer them after this is all done. All right, so let's go on to why testing matters. What colleges consider. If you look on the graph right here, you're going to see the big output and the small output. And the big output is telling you what colleges consider. First and foremost, you see the biggest part of the chunk is transcripts, your GPAs. This is exactly what colleges are looking at. The largest part of the whole graph is what colleges are looking at is your GPA. So I know what you're thinking, how can I go back in the past and correct my GPA? Well, you can't, but we'll get to that in a minute. So just worry about your GPA now, what you're taking care of, what you're doing to improve your GPA now and in the future. Also, it's looking at what you did during high school, like AP classes, languages, all of that is wrapped up. So let me ask you students right now, how long do you guys spend working on your GPA right now? Think about how long do you spend in school right now, working towards your GPA, working for everything. So you go to school for 8 hours a day, right? Okay. So you get about roughly 8 to 10 hours when you get home. You do a couple hours with the homework. So say 8 to 11 hours. Okay, so that's about 8,000 hours that you're devoting just to your grades alone, just to the grades part of this. 8,000 hours. Let's look at this other part. This other part is like your extracurricular, your sports, your job, your church, everything you do outside of your GPA. And colleges look at this. So they're going to look at your part-time jobs. They're going to look at how involved in the community you are, how involved in the church you are. All of these things add up to be a more well-rounded individual, and that's something that colleges are interested in. Now, who does extracurricular activities outside of school? Majority, exactly. I mean, everybody has at least a job or theater, like myself. When I was in high school, I did a lot of theater. I was also in choir. I was also in the AP History Club. I did a lot of that kind of stuff as well. And that's all going towards what colleges look at. Now, how many hours do you spend on those extracurricular activities? I know for myself that I spent, I was after school for 2 to 3 hours between choir and theater, and that's not even including the history club, that's not including the job, that's not including all the time I devoted to my church outside of it as well. But on average, you're looking at about 1,000 hours during your high school towards that extracurricular activity. Okay, so you got 8,000 to 10,000 hours on your GPA, 1,000 hours on your extracurricular activity. Now let's think about how much time you actually spend on this part, the standardized testing part of this graph. How many hours you're actually spending on that. And it's standardized testing. It's 25 to 35% of the graph, but the average student only spends about 10 hours on testing, on being prepared for standardized testing. So you're going from 8 to 10,000 hours, 1,000 hours, 8 to 10 hours for something that takes up 25 to 35% of what colleges are looking for. And that's why preparation for testing is so important to you. You're looking at 8,000 hours on grids, 1,000 hours in extra activity, and only 10 hours on prep for PSATs, the SATs, the ACTs. But with the Revolution Prep course, you can spend 40 to 50 hours on just test prepping. You're increasing it 5 times by just taking a Revolution Prep course. And that's going to be essential into helping you guys understand and strategize how to be better test takers, how to improve your testing scores, and what colleges are looking at. 25 to 35% of what the colleges are actually looking at. You can't go back in time to fix your grades, but you can get better scores on the PSATs, on the SATs, on the ACTs. And it's not going to take 8,000 hours for you to do it. It's not going to take 1,000 hours for you to do it. It's not even going to take 100 hours for you to do it. In a small percentage of time, you're going to improve your scores, and you're going to do better on the test, and you're going to help yourself look better when you send your transcripts in. All right, so let's look at the next slide of, well, what is the PSAT? All right, so PSAT, right there at the beginning. The P in PSAT is practice. We're going to help you practice to take the SATs. For the sophomores, this is your first exposure to college admission testing. It's a completely different experience than a high school test. It's a completely different experience than a half-hour test that your math teacher is going to give you. Your geology teacher is going to give you. It's a completely different experience. This is a college admissions test. This is going to be an enduring, grueling test that you're not used to. So this is going to be your first exposure to this world, an entirely new world, an entirely new way to take a test. For juniors, PSATs can qualify you for the National Merit Competition. I encourage you all after this to go and talk to your counselors, your high school counselors, about the National Merit Competition. This is only going to benefit you. And for everybody, sophomore, juniors, everybody, this is a chance to find out where you stand so you can get better prepared for the SAT. How you rank. How are you going to do in the endurance part of the test? Because a lot of these tests, a lot of the big portion of the test is just endurance. It's finding out how you can endure such a large portion of the test. Okay, so let's go to the next slide here. And we're going to look at the total time for the PSAT. Now, the total time for the PSAT is 2 hours and 10 minutes. 2 hours and 10 minutes on one test. Like I said, this is a long test. This is the test that is going to challenge you not only psychologically, not going to challenge just your knowledge, it's also going to challenge you emotionally and physically. So how did you do? Were you tired? Were you losing focus when you took the test? Because you've all taken the PSAT now. How did you do during that test? When did you lose focus? How hard was it for you to stay focused? How hard was it for you to keep awake during the test? They make these tests grueling for a reason. They're testing you on everything. And we're going to talk about how you can build your endurance. You keep hearing me say it. It's going to be the biggest part of this. The biggest part is just finding out how you can actually physically do on the test. But now we're going to get to the part where you're really here. This is the next slide is why you come tonight. Let's talk about your scores. You've all taken the test. You all realized what it was like to take the test. Now you want to find out how you did on the test. So let's take a look at your scores. Everybody take out your score sheets. Everybody should have been given a giant score sheet, this huge pamphlet of a score sheet. I want you to all take it out, and let's take a look at how you did. Look at yours while you're looking at my demonstration students on this slide. So you'll see that first thing you're going to see is there's 3 big scores in the speech bubbles right here. You see critical reading is 50, mathematics is 52, and writing skills is 44, right in those speech bubbles. Now, what you're going to see from that is that's going to be how you performed on the test, how you did on the actual test. Each section is scored out of 80 points, so it's a total of 240 points total. For each section, you're going to receive a score range, and a percentile rank, and we're going to get to those in just a minute. Right now, we're just worried about your score. So 50, so that's 50 out of total 80 points. Now, below that, you're going to see, so as you see in the slide, they got 50 in the critical reading, a 52 on mathematics, and a 44 in writing skills. Now, underneath that score range, you're going to see, underneath that is the score range, I apologize. Underneath that, you're going to see the score range. So you're going to see that right here it says 46 to 54 on critical reading. So if this student took this test again with no other prep, that's probably the range they're probably going to get. That's the range they're probably going to get, anywhere between a 46 to a 54 with no other prep. Sometimes they're going to do a little bit better, sometimes they're going to do a little worse, just by their own knowledge that they have right now. Now under that percentile, you're going to see the percentile. And that's how you compare with other students who took that test. So you're going to see that, you're going to see that you scored 55%, this student scored 55% higher than other juniors in critical reading. And in mathematics, they scored 57% higher than other juniors and 33% on the writing skills. So this already gives you some kind of idea of where improvement's needed. You know that it's out of a total of 80 points, that writing skills were only 44. So they already have a lot of improvement they could get from what they learned right now from that part of the section scores. They already know that they need to improve on their writing skills. But we're actually going to go a little bit more in depth on the next slide. We're going to talk about the total score. That's the selection index. Now, what they mean by selection index is just that. It's just the total score. So don't even worry about the word selection index. We're talking about the total score. So let's go over it. It's the sum of scores. Again, it's 80% per section, so that's 240. It's going to tell you the percentile, what percentage of college-bound students in your states, college-bound juniors, I apologize, in your states did score higher than you, and that you scored higher than. And it's also going to give you an index to transfer your score from the PSAT to an SAT. And how that works is, for this example right here, they got 146 on the PSAT. So if you just add a 0 to that, that's going to give you the rough estimate of how they were going to do, how this student would have done on the SAT. So just add a 0, gives you a similar score. So that's about it for this slide. Let's go on to the next slide here. Let's break it down even more. Now I know that we've already kind of told you a little bit about, not a little bit, a lot about your scores, how you compared with other students, the percentiles, everything. We're going to break it down even more because the skills breakdown section is just that. It breaks it all down and gives you a ton of information, a ton of important information. It's going to assess your strengths and your weaknesses to determine where you need to prep even more. And for example, let's look at a sample student. This sample student got 8 out of 10 in reasoning and inference. It's pretty good, 8 out of 10. It's not bad at all. But, and if you look on their organization ideas, they only got a 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10, they really need to focus on organization and ideas. It's really going to show you where you need to focus and how you're going to focus when you take the test again. Now, another thing to notice on this is it gives you this unique code right here. The code is, I apologize, code is A02670146P. What does that mean? Just some random numbers and letters. Now, if you go to collegeboard.com/quickstart, type in that unique code that they give you, you're going to see even more information. Every question that you took, every question that was on the test is going to be right there for you. And it's also going to give you even more practice. It's going to have you more examples, more things that you can do on the website to practice and even prep yourself even more. If you haven't noticed the pattern here, we're talking a lot about endurance. We're talking a lot about prep. Endurance and preparation is going to help you do better the next time you take the SATs, the PSATs, the ACTs, wherever you take. So that's one thing. Anything you take away from tonight is that preparation is key. Endurance is key on these grueling, long, boring tests. They make them grueling, they make them long, they make them boring on purpose. They want you to lose focus. They want you to get tired. They want you to start questioning yourself halfway through the test because you've been sitting for so long. So endurance and prep, they're key. Let's go on to the next slide to questions by questions. And this is the most specific breakdown the PSAT gives you. It answers every single question on the test. Now, if you look right here, I apologize, my slides are a little small. If you look right here in the first 2 columns, they tell you the question number and the correct answer. That right there, that's going to help you. If you go back to the last slide on the skill breakdown, you can go to the website and you can see every question. Now they're showing you every answer that you wrote and the correct answers. Only going to help you prep for more. The third column, your answer, shows what you put for the question. If there's a check mark, you got that question right. If there's a letter, you got that question wrong, and the letter is the correct answer. I apologize. You got that question wrong. The letter is the answer that you selected, and if there's a lowercase o, that means you omitted or skipped the question. When I took the SAT just recently, there was a large section that had O's that I had skipped the questions. I knew what I could answer and I knew what I couldn't answer, and I answered those specific questions. Now, analyzing each question you got wrong is one of the best ways for you to improve. Now you can go back and look at the question and see why you got it wrong. Not just see that you got it wrong. It's going to help you see why you got it wrong. Did you get tired? Did you run out of time? Did you just forget how to solve the question? For myself, in the math part of it, I just forgot how to solve the questions. I literally forgot how to do certain math equations. So I just didn't know how to solve them. When I got my scores back, I could look, I could see what the correct answer was and how to solve it. And it's only going to help me if I ever take the SATs again, God forbid. Additionally, it's important to take a look at the difficulty levels of the question. On the PSAT, every question is worth the same number of points, 1. Now this is different than the way your typical high school tests go. You probably get a few points for easy questions and more points for the trickier question, and you get a monster points for the questions at the end of the test. And your teacher probably even gives you some partial credit if you get part of it right. And that's not true on the SAT, it's not true on the PSAT. So you take some time to see how they do on each level of the question. If you got a lot of the easiest and the mediums wrong, then you might have been rushing through to get to the end. And it's just a pacing, it's just an endurance, it's just a pacing problem that you have to figure out. But again, it's this question by question breakdown will go through the minutia of the test and let you figure out what you need to do to get them right the next time. All right, so we're going to go with the next slide, and this is the SAT reasoning test. So on here, again, we're going to be talking about endurance. This is the SAT part of it. Total time is 3 hours and 45 minutes. You thought that 2-hour test was long? It could get to almost 4 hours of testing, just straight testing. Now let's break down the sections of the SAT. As you can see, we got critical reading for 20 minutes. We got writing for 10 minutes. Hold on, my computer just did something weird. Apologize. So you got writing for 10 minutes. You got essay for 25 minutes, critical reading for 25 minutes, math for 25 minutes. Starting to see a pattern here? 25 minutes is the longest part of each section of the test. Once again, here we're back to critical reading 2 for 25 minutes, math 2 for 25 minutes, writing for 25 minutes, math for 20 minutes, and critical reading, math 3 for 25 minutes, and critical reading 3 for 20 minutes. So, the essay will always come first. Expect to crank out a 25-minute essay. If you've never written an essay that proves your point that quickly in only 25 minutes, practice, practice, practice. Myself, on the essay, I found myself running out of ideas to support my thesis after about 10 minutes because I was so worried about the clock that I forgot what I was actually writing. So again, it's nothing but endurance, it's nothing but practice. After that section, after the essay section though, it's going to alternate among math, reading, and writing. Now the longest section is 25 minutes, the writing section is only 10 minutes long. So it all looks pretty basic, as I told you about every section except for one. I didn't tell you about this one funny section right here that's called the experimental section. That's 25 minutes. What exactly is the experimental section? Anybody know? Alright, let me just tell you. The experimental section, that's where the SAT is testing out questions for use on future tests. Now you're actually paying to get used as a little bit of a guinea pig. So, you know, lucky you guys, you're a guinea pig. They're testing you while they're testing you. So if you thought you was grueling enough, now you got to be worried about why are they testing you while they're testing you. Don't worry about it. You don't know which section's experimental while you're taking the test. And you know what? Treat every section as if it counts. Because for you, it does. Every section of this, whether it be the experimental, we don't know which one it is, don't even bother. Don't even worry about it. Treat them all like they're the same. Treat them all like they count. Because they do. So that's the SAT reasoning test. And should be roughly about 15 minutes. Thank you very much.